Hello, I'm Amara Jones and welcome to Caffeine TV, your daily video news brief, here to take you through 3 headline numbers in just 3 minutes, giving you a different take on everything from housing policy to the Real Housewives. Now, the first number up this morning comes under the banner of news that you can use. That number is 0. And yes, for all you sticklers out there, 0 is technically a number. And that's where the Federal Reserve announced yesterday that it would keep the nation's benchmark interest rate close to for nearly a year. Now, the good news about that is that your credit cards and your autos and your housing, adjustable housing mortgages, if you still have them, are going to remain unchanged for a considerable amount of time, which is more money in your pocket. The not so good news is the reason why, and that's because the economy is still short 14 million jobs of where it was before the crisis in 2008 in terms of providing employment to everybody who wants it. So the good news is that you're going to be able to have more spare change. The not so good news is the reason why, and it's because either you or people that you know are still having a tough time finding a job that will help make ends meet. The next number up this morning is 1, as in $1 billion. That's the amount of subsidies provided by state and local governments, you and me, to the NFL across the country each year for stadiums and tax abatements and that sort of thing. It comes from Greg Easterbrook, who wrote a book called The King of Sport. Now, particularly in light of the fact that yet another football player was arrested on domestic violence charges yesterday, Jonathan Dwyer, it raises a question for all of us of what we're paying for and why. Particularly in light of the fact that professional football, particularly inside of stadiums, is becoming a spectator sport for the wealthy. It takes $127 just to walk through the door. And at a time when state and local governments are still having a hard time meeting basic needs, spending less on education than they did before the crisis in 2008. And so this is not a question for the NFL front office, and it's not a question for teams. It's actually a question for you and me of what we're doing and why, and what we think about it. The last number up this morning is 5. That's as in 5,000. According to AFP, that's the number of condoms being handed out each day to athletes at the Asian Games in Incheon, Korea, currently underway. Now, what's interesting is that the host committee says that these are being handed out not because the athletes are actually using them, it's because they're souvenirs. Now, what was interesting to me is that you might remember that 150,000 souvenirs were handed out to athletes at the London Games in 2012. And I just wish that I had thought of that at various times in my life to be able to say, no, mom and dad, that is actually just a souvenir. Or when conservatives go off the rails and complain about funding for condoms or all the rest of it, heaven knows what, that we can say, no, those aren't being used. Those are just being souvenirs. They're souvenirs. They're going to make, I don't know, jewelry out of them or something. I know that they remind me of a trip I've taken once or twice in my life. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining and for watching and for sharing. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Vine, Instagram, and on it goes. Have a fantastic and amazing day. See you tomorrow.